guys, Chris from Hockey Tutorial here, and today we're finally taking a look at the 1S skates from the Bauer Supreme range versus the brand new 2S Pro skates. Now this has got to be one of the most heavily requested comparison videos that we are yet to create. It's been a very busy summer for us, but we're finally here to give you guys a real video comparison of these two boots. So without further ado, as we always do, we'll start at the base of the skate and work our way upwards. So taking a look at the runners or the blades of these skates, with the 1S examples that we have over here feature Bauer's LS4 runners. Now, traditionally you might see them with an LS2 depending on where you pick them up from, but the main difference between the LS4 and the LS2 is that there is more steel on the LS4. It sits a little bit higher than the LS2, so you're able to have a tighter or greater turning radius while you're on the ice, but aside from that, there's not a real difference. Now, when we look at the runners of the brand new 2S Pros, these feature Bauer's LS5. Now, the first thing you're going to notice about this steel is that it's black. What that is essentially it's a carbon coating. Now we talk about different colored steels and black steels a lot on this channel. A lot of people claim that they are a gimmick, but they are not. The carbon coating on the steel effectively makes the steel harder. So it's able to deal with things like rust, corrosion, and holding your edge or the edge of the blade much, much longer than the traditional steel without that black carbon coating. Now this is definitely a performance benefit that you notice if that steel is properly looked after. So when it's sharpened, for example, you're not supposed to use a ceramic or stone hone to hone down the sides. You'll often see after your skates get sharpened, some sort of stone is placed along the sides of the runners and it's rubbed up and down. That's not what you're supposed to do with these. You use a leather hone to maintain that black coating and maintain the performance that that black blade gives you. So when we move up from there, taking a look at both of the holders on these skates, this is Bauer's LS Edge holder, which is the exact same holder on both of these skates, which features that trigger system that allows you to change your steel in literally a matter of seconds. Now, this is definitely a piece of technology that sets Bauer aside when you look at runners across all of the flagship or major skate manufacturers. So it's good to see this feature being carried across. It's definitely a phenomenal one. It's one of the reasons these holders are very, very popular in hockey. Now, as we start to work our way up the skate, looking at the 1S skates over here, now this is where we saw Bauer's fully composite outsole with ventilation. So effectively what that is, it features perforations or holes at the base of the outsole to allow excess heat and moisture to be able to exit the skate. This particular piece of material is incredibly stiff, incredibly rigid. The idea behind it, the stiffer and the more rigid the material is, the easier you're able to translate your movements from inside the skate onto the blade, creating a responsive skate. From there, when we take a look at the 2S Pros, this is where I personally expect to see along the outsole section some form or the introduction of a skate that didn't require the use of an outsole. When we look at the other flagship manufacturers, they're all encompassing some type of new skate construction, whether it's a monoframe, a one-piece boot, or a monocroc construction that doesn't involve the use of an outsole. This form of construction has numerous benefits, whether it's eliminating all of the components that are used to attach the outsole to the holder in the boot. That's glue, clips, which are made from metal, pins, and then of course the carbon fiber material itself. All of that is removed when you no longer need to use this form of construction. So it's very surprising to see that Bauer still stick to the traditional two-piece boot construction. It would have been great to get a little bit more detail and insight from Bauer as to why that they've done this, but unfortunately this is information that we haven't been able to get access to. So Bauer, if you're watching, you have our email, hit us up. We want to know more about these boots and why that you guys chose to construct them in this particular way. But when we look at this type of construction, similar to the 1S skates, features a very, very stiff and rigid composite outsole that's also vented, so it's going to have those perforations or holes to allow excess heat and moisture to exit the skate. The difference between the outsole on the 2S Pros and the original 1S is that this is just going to be a more fine-tuned, refined type of an outsole. So it's going to be stiffer, it's going to be more rigid, it's going to be a little bit lighter than what we've seen previously. Now, when we continue our way up into the quarter package, when we look at the original 1S skates, this features Bauer's 3D lasted curved composite. Now, that was technology that we said in our previous video that derived from the Odin project, which was that very futuristic looking skate that I was very fortunate enough to visit Bauer's HQ in Montreal to be able to take a look at it. This was at their research and development center. So a big thank you for making that happen, Bauer. Now, when we go from the 1S to the 2S Pros and we take a look at the quarter package, we're seeing Bauer's curved carbon composite in these skates over here. Now, very similar to what I said about the outsole on the 2S Pro skates, that's exactly what Bauer are doing over here. That curved carbon composite quarter package is just going to have all of those properties that we saw in the previous 1S skates more fine-tuned. So you can expect it to be a lot more stiff, a lot more rigid. It's going to be a lot lighter than what we saw previously over here. And it's also going to be more thermoreactive. So again, they're going to be fine-tuning those features that we saw in the 1S skates and moving them into the new and more modern 2S Pro skates. Aside from this, when you take a very close look at some of the materials along the front portions of the skates, you'll notice that there's a general reduction in the size. If it's the material that's stitched onto the front of the skate around the forefoot area, or if it's going to be the synthetic leathers and materials that are stitched into the rear or the heel of the skate. When you look at the 1S compared to the 2S Pros, all of these materials have been reduced in their size, thickness, and I guess you could say bulkiness. So they're trying to trim down the new 2S Pros to make them lighter and better responsive. Now taking a look at the lacing system on these skates, of course starting off with the 1S, these feature the injected stability lacing system that we first saw introduced on the APX line of skates. Now the idea behind this is that this new style of lacing system eliminates all of the multiple pieces of material that are required to build or construct this section of the skate. So that's pieces of metal, synthetic leathers, plastics, that's now essentially condensed into one piece. Now Bauer claimed that that's going to not only be more durable, but it's also going to allow the player to have better forward flexion inside the skates. Now this lacing system also features T-shaped eyelets that allow the laces to be able to be locked in place after they've been tied. So the idea behind that is when you're in the locker room, you tie your skates once and you don't have to worry about the laces slipping out after you've had a few shifts onto the ice. Now, when we move over onto the 2S Pros, this features the same stability lacing system with essentially one change. If you look around the top sections of the eyelet system, Bauer have included 3 additional eyelets to that section. Now, on paper, this is, I guess you could say, positioned as allowing players to have better customization when they're tying their skates laces up, because players are now really getting into finding out different ways that they can lace up their skates to be able to benefit their performance and have them be a little bit more comfortable on the ice, and of course, prevent their laces from coming undone. Now, I personally feel that these laces also have a slightly hidden feature that hasn't really been mentioned from all of the information that I found online. And that's the fact that these don't feature those T-shaped eyelets. In the 3 additional laces that Bauer have added, they don't feature those T-shapes that we saw on all of the stability lacing systems prior to that. Now, I personally feel that what that is for is to allow the players to be able to tie the top sections of their skates without having to worry about the laces locking in place, because when I've used some of Bauer's skates, the Vapor range, the Supreme range, that all feature this type of lacing systems, it's been very difficult for me to tie my skates the way I traditionally would with your conventional, or I guess you could say traditional eyelets. When I pull them at certain angles, it's very difficult to get the laces to get as tight as I want them to. And now that we see that these 3 additional eyelets don't feature those T-shaped eyelets that are going to lock the laces in place, now that isn't going to be an issue anymore. So whether that's intended or not, it's just something that I noticed, that those eyelets are very, very different to the other ones that are featured on this same lacing system. Of course, taking a quick look at the neck of both of these skates, which is this section over here, you can see that Bauer has continued to use their comfort edge pads, which is the exact same thing that we saw on the 1S that's been moved over onto the 2S Pros as well. So that's just an added bit of material and foam at the top of the skate around the section I refer to as the neck, to alleviate pressure at one point. So when you're turning very aggressively, playing real hard, you don't have to worry about the skate kind of digging into the top of your foot, creating discomfort and sometimes a lot of pain. It can even cut you sometimes. So it's nice to see that Bauer have continued using that nice, soft, comfortable foam padding onto the 2S Pros as well. But aside from that, the tops of the skates, nothing's changed there. Now, taking a very quick look at both of the tendons on these skates, with the 1S we saw Bauer's C-Flex technology tendon, which was effectively a customizable tendon guard. Now, what I mean by this is that it featured inserts that you could either remove or put in place to be able to adapt or change the stiffness of the tendon. So this just allowed players to be able to customize their tendons to be able to figure out what works best for them. Now, if we look at the 2S Pros, it's the exact same tendon support system, so essentially nothing has changed over here. Now, from there, taking a look at both of the tongues on these skates, the 1S featured a 52/40 ounce tongue, which featured C-Flex technology. Now, what that was, if you look at the front section of the tongue, was removable composite inserts that you could use to adapt or customize how stiff the tongue was when you were in your forward flexion on the ice. Now, the idea behind this is that they came with different stiffness composite inserts inside the box, and you were able to adapt it to figure out which one of them worked best for the way that you played. So from there, taking a look at the tongue featured on the 2S Pros. At a glance, you can see it's completely different. This is Bauer's Reflex Pro 3-piece 52-ounce felt tongue. Now, what this tongue features is not removable, but moldable inserts inside. You can see that the design over here looks very, very contrastingly different to the previous one. Now, the idea behind this is not only will the sides of the skate be incredibly thermoformable and thermoreactive, the tongue will as well. That's going to give you a locked fit. In other words, that means that there's going to be very little negative space inside this skate because the tongue and the boot itself are both going to be contouring to the shape of your foot. The tongue's also been featured or designed to give you a little bit of energy return in your strides. You could say that it gives you a little flex or pop while you're striding. The idea behind this, of course, can be open to interpretation, but the idea is that it gives you a little bit of return on your energy, helping you to be a little bit more consistent with your stride. Now, how much of that you're going to feel when you're on the ice, of course, is always debatable, but these are some of the features that have been packed into this skate. Now, I've got to say that the feel of this tongue, the look of this tongue, the performance of the tongue is personally what I would expect to see on a skate that is targeted at an elite level of play. Compared to the original 1Ss, one of the more drastic improvements that I've seen on the new 2S Pros is definitely going to be in that brand new tongue. So from there, taking a look at the liners of these skates, starting off with the 1S skates over here. These were the Anaform Fit liners, which featured the 37.5 material. The idea behind this material was that it used the player's body heat to help evaporate the moisture inside the skate. Now, when we look inside the liners, they also feature those wear pads that were strategically placed inside the liners of these skates around the high wear areas to help improve the durability of the liners and also to ensure that the high wear areas of the liners or the internals of the skate would last the lifetime of the skates themselves. So from there, taking a look at the liners inside the 2S Pros, this features Bauer's brand new Lock Fit Pro liners. Now, very similar to what we said about the structure of the skate, everything inside these liners is essentially, as you would expect, an improvement on the previous 1S liners. So you can expect the comfort to be a little bit more enhanced in these liners, the durability, of course, to be again enhanced and last the life length of these skates. Now, aside from the cosmetical differences that you can see between these liners with the color scheme, the 2S Pro liners also feature a more tactile surface. The idea behind this is to go in hand with the Lock Fit Pro system that has been developed for these particular skates to help keep your feet planted, to avoid any slippage inside the skate, so any movement or motions made by your feet can be translated directly onto the skate's blade. All of the improvements and elements around the 2S Pro skates are designed to keep your feet planted, keep them locked, reduce negative space to increase the performance that you're able to get out of a pair of skates. The liners of the 2S Pro skates also feature those pads around the high wear areas. Again, like we said with the 1S skates, those are there to ensure the liners last the life length of the skates. Last but not least is going to be the footbeds in these skates. So of course you're going to have your traditional foam footbeds, which are very, very soft to the touch, that come standard inside any skates that you pick up. But these particular skates also come with the speed plate footbeds, which is what these are over here. Now with the 1S skates, we saw the first generation of speed plates. What these were for is that they would go into the skate during the baking process, and this very solid speed plate over here would mold and take to the shape of the base of your foot. This was to increase the contact between the bottom of your foot and the bottom of the skate. By doing that, you actually enhance your balance, your stability, which in turn will then lead to you being able to perform that little bit more efficiently, that little bit better on the ice. And what we've seen in the brand new 2S Pros is Bauer have essentially improved the durability of the original speed plate. Now what this is for is to ensure that any players that were experiencing any breakages or anything like that will not happen in the brand new 2S Pro skates. So very similar to what we've seen in lots of different elements of the skate, this is essentially the same thing, just better improved, better enhanced with improved durability to ensure that it lasts the life length of the skates. As always, thank you very much for watching this video, especially for watching it all the way to the end. Hopefully we've been able to answer those questions that you might have had about the differences between the 2S Pros and the original 1S skates with our real VS video, maybe even sharing a bit of insight into which one of these skates you might want to pick up. If it's the brand new current top-end skates, or if it's last year's top-end skates. Remember, both of these skates are still phenomenal products, and in some cases you can save a ton of cash depending on where you pick up last year's top-end skates from. But if there's any questions you have, please leave them down below. And of course, if you want to pick these skates up, we will put a link down below in the video description. Big thank you to Puckstop for making this video possible by sending us these skates. And of course, guys, make sure that you stay connected. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all of the links are down below in the video description. Thank you very much, and I will catch you in the next one. Take care.